Article, after 2, it's 3. Article 3. Shall the town raise and appropriate the sum of $26,855 to be used for raises for non-union town and library personnel? If approved, this addition would become part of the annual budget recommended by the Board of Selectmen. Tom?
Move to place the article on the ballot as printed.
It's been moved and seconded to place this article on the ballot as read. Seeing no opposition to that, so be it.
Ask for discussion?
Oh, okay, I can ask for discussion. You want to
Board's
speak
point
to
of view, just briefly, it seemed pretty self-explanatory, so I'm not going to go into great detail. Read the article, and that's what it means.
Finance Committee, Lori? I can't take a break, that's the thing. I took a half-an-hour break, and now I'm all confabbled.
The Finance Committee recommends this. The article provides merit-based raises averaging 2% for non-union town and library employees. The Board of Selectmen reduced its original proposal from 3% to 2% as recommended by the Finance Committee. The committee supports at a 2% level consistent with cost of living. The committee would note that the town administrator receives an 18% raise and the police chief raise at 8% without town approval, which is perceived by other town employees, and the committee is extremely unjust by comparison. Something else to add is our police chief is allowed to take part of this on top of the raise that he gets, and the town administrator for the next 2 years will not be participating in this, but her last 4 years she will be able to.
Helene?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Helene Kirk, Mount Dearborn Road. Just to put some added numbers to what you've already heard, if a town employee is making $30,000 a year, that employee will see an $11.54 pay increase, a paycheck, which is $600 a year. That's it.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Move the question.
Thank you. Second? Second. It's been moved and seconded to call the question. All those in favor of calling the question, say raise your cards. All those opposed? It has been called. The question has been called, and seeing no more questions about this, it will appear on the ballot. It has been moved to restrict the reconsideration, and it has been seconded. All those in favor of restricting this reconsideration, thank you. Article 4. Shall the town raise and appropriate the sum of $15,000 to be added to the previously established Government Building and Maintenance Capital Reserve Fund for the purpose of maintenance and repairs to the various town buildings, recommended by the Board of Selectmen. Estimated impact of 2 cents. Who's speaking to that? Jan?
Yes. This article pertains to the town office, town hall, the public safety building, the 2 fire department buildings, the Stone Memorial Building, and the library.
Thank you. Lori?
The Finance Committee recommends this article. It believes the $75,000 in this fund is a well-established historical standard to fund unexpected maintenance issues in many of our aging town structures. The fund currently has $60,000 in it. In response to the Finance Committee, the Board of Selectmen's original proposal for $36,000 was reduced to $15,000. That would bring it up to an acceptable level.
Thank you. Dick?
Richard Butt, could you tell me what the balance is in the funds now?
balance of $66,410.
And what's the balance in the Mildred Hall fund for that building? For the town hall building?
$16,102.
So the total is what between the two? 76?
No, 82. 16 onto that would be 82.
$82,000 available to the board in two funds. One of the amounts is strictly for use in the town hall. Is that right? Okay, so what is the $15,000 going?
You're speaking to me.
I'm sorry. What is the $15,000 going to accomplish? What is it used for? It started at $46,000 based on a list that was supplied to the board by the town administrator that identified certain projects in all of the buildings. Then it got dropped down to $36,000 simply because the $46,000 was too close to another article on the warrant that was for $46,000. So it was reduced to arbitrarily the $36,000. And then at the public hearing, there was after the public hearing, there was a recommendation or a motion made by one selectman to reduce it to 0. And it was put at $15,000. So I don't understand how you can go from 46 to 15 with having a plan in place, because it doesn't appear there's a plan. And the money that's in that fund, the Government Building and Maintenance Capital Reserve Fund, should be planned in terms of its usage. I would agree there should be $30,000 to $40,000 in there for an emergency that you don't touch, but anything over that is usable for a particular project in any given year. And what you're telling me, there's about $40,000 in that fund, over a 40 residual amount that should be kept there. And you're telling me you want to use $15,000. So it would seem like you have enough money in that fund to cover whatever the $15,000 would be used for, which you would, I guess I have to go back and ask a question, sorry. What's the $15,000 going to be used for?
You're asking that in relationship to a plan?
Yeah, I could have asked that 5 minutes earlier.
Okay. Jan?
Well, there are a number of areas in the town that need to be repaired right at the moment. I know that in one of the offices in the town office building, there's a situation of mold that we have to get verified and repaired. There's also the possibility of there's a roof problem or at the safety complex. And there's a variety of other areas at the town hall that need to be repaired as well. I mean, the corner boards, the eaves, there's rot.
What's the 80? There's $80,000 in that fund. I haven't yet to hear an answer as to why is there a need to put $15,000 into that fund.
You mean more?
More. Again, it started out at 46, and it's down to 15. So, how did it wind up at 15, and what's going to be accomplished by putting $15,000 into a fund that already has $80,000 in it?
I believe I've named some items right now that, would verify that amount.
What was the answer? I'm sorry.
The answer is that there are a number of items that are listed to be and proposed to be worked on this coming year that can justify that amount.
Okay. I don't consider that a specific enough answer to justify the $15,000 request. I know it's a minor amount. This is more of an issue with planning, doing the proper planning, putting people in place so they can identify what the needs are within the town. There should have been a building committee put in place during the past summer. It never was put in place. They're kind of reacting to things, a knee-jerk reaction to certain things. There's no plan in place. This has always been the problem with this particular fund. There is no plan identifying what the needs are. I don't mind putting money into a fund. It's not the taxes that's the issue. It's how it's being spent, how it's being used. I don't see that this is being used properly. And I would then, and I don't have have it written, but I'd like to amend that to 0 because I haven't received a sufficient answer.
Well, thank you for your comment. If there is a motion to reduce this to 0, then the body can take that up.
Right, I would like to make a motion then to reduce it to
I need it in
0,
writing.
and I'll give it to you in writing in a matter of 40 steps.
Okay, take your 40 steps. 8, 23.
I didn't take this out of your hand, but I wanted
God has been trying to teach me that.
to talk. Introduce it? Either way.
Leave that there.
I'll let you
I have a motion to reduce this Article 4 from $15,000 to 0. Is there a second? It has been moved and seconded. The article will then read, shall the town raise and appropriate the sum of $0 to be added to the previously established government building and maintenance capital reserve fund for the purpose of maintenance and repairs to the various town buildings? Discussion on the amendment.
At this point, I would support the amendment, and I would say if the numbers seem to be, the dollar amounts seem to be correct, of $80,000 or that amount that's in that fund already, see how far that will go, and then next year come back and replace an equal amount of dollars. So don't ask for more in anticipation of spending it, because you know, there seems to be enough in that account, certainly to accomplish a couple or several major issues. I don't have a problem with kind of capping an account like this. If you want to cap it at $80,000, which I think is a lot, spend it down and then replace what you spend. To me, it's common sense.
Thank you.
Marjorie Burke, 47 Merrill Road. Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I'm speaking against the amendment, and I will say what I said at the school deliberative session the other night. 2 words that stewards of public buildings never want to hear are deferred maintenance. And the longer we defer maintenance on issues such as Jan mentioned, the more expensive the program gets later on. So I am against this amendment. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sharon Zarnicki, 37 Newman Wilson Road. I'm kind of new to this game, but if we reduce that to 0, doesn't that mean we're not going to have the article on the ballot at all? Why would we list it?
By law, the article has to appear on the ballot, but it would appear as putting 0 in the fund. We can't just take it off the ballot.
I think the taxpayers are going to wonder about us.
Mr. Moderator?
Yes, Tom.
I'm speaking against the amendment. Big surprise. We're not just going willy-nilly without any idea of what we're doing. The board has hired a firm to look at different projects in town and give us plans on what to do. Team Engineer, which is, I don't think they're in Goffstown anymore, but they have been in Goffstown, worked with us in looking at the need for ventilation and insulation in the attic of the town office building. We don't have a specific price on it, that's right. They also drew up a plan for stabilizing the gazebo, and we have one estimate on that project, plus several board members, or a board member with some help from the community, got a price on replacing the gazebo. We have had multiple estimates for different areas on the town hall, like the replacement of the rot that's around the eaves and the corner boards and so forth. We had one for the windows, which is a big expense that we wouldn't be going into this year. But, you know, we've dragged our feet on this stuff. There's no doubt about that. But we're not blind to the needs, and we're not just going willy-nilly. So we've got to move along. That's got to be a charge of this board.
I think it is willy-nilly, dilly-dilly. The thing is that it's started at 46,000, I believe, somewhere around there, an itemized list of the things that needed to be done in the town, supplied to the board by the town administrator. They determined that number maybe was too close to another article, and that would create confusion on the part of the voters. We're confused. Then it was reduced to $36,000 to provide some separation strictly in the number. Not because, well, we're going to not do this project, we're going to defer it to next year. Then it was reduced to $15,000 with no explanation as to what that money would be used for. No consideration for the amount of money that's already in that account, which is $80,000. If you were proposing $45,000 or $50,000, I probably could accept that, but because I think there'd be some meaning behind it. But $15,000 is just $15,000. It's not accomplishing a thing. It can't identify what that money is going to be used for. I agree that there are buildings in town that need to be repaired. They need to have estimates. They need to be itemized. They need to have people that are capable and qualified to review those and get quotes and create a plan, whether it's a 2-year plan, a 1-year plan, or a 5-year plan. There is no plan. It is willy-nilly. So,
if I'm hearing you correctly, you believe that the board should, in the future, be sure to have made a plan for the maintenance of the buildings that they propose to spend the money on.
I agree, but I think we should start now by letting them know that we're not going to accept this proposal, because it's an insult to the voters, in my opinion, to provide an article on the warrant that really doesn't justify the expense.
Thank you.
That's it.
Sharon Zarnicki, 37 Newman Wilson Road. So just to clarify, it would have been nice to have a list with all the expenses, but the way I think of it is like this. If my husband comes home and says to me, gee, I'm hoping we're going to get a raise, and I say to him, that would be nice. This is the list of things we can get done without your raise. If you get a raise, this is what we're going to add to the list. It's not like I can't come up with the list. I've got the list. I know all these things need to be done. If you don't do it this year, you're going to do it next year. So it strikes me as the same kind of thinking that you would use as a homeowner with, oh, look, you got the raise. Let's go ahead and do these other things as well. So I'm just asking, is that the kind of thinking we have going on here?
I believe so, but I'm not speaking to the article. Helene?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Helene Kirk, Mount Dearborn Road. Mr. Moderator, I implore the selectmen to get that building committee that has been talked about now for a year, maybe longer, that has 1 or 2 members, Sherry Burdick among them, but doesn't have a complete committee. Go out and knock on doors. Get it moving, because this discussion we wouldn't be having right now, because we'd have that committee to give us the information. Thank you.
Thank you. I would like to make a comment about that. I could go down to the microphone and make a comment, but I'm not going to, because I'm incredibly lazy. The issue, and the issue comes down to committee membership. This town has many committees, and all of them could use volunteers. even if they're put onto a list for being backup members. So I encourage, I implore, I plead, pretty good, for the members of the town to sign up for committees that they're interested in. It seems unfortunate, if it's accurate in my understanding, that we have a building committee that it does not seem to be functioning at the moment.
They have to knock on doors to get members.
Right, and that this is a town-wide knocking on a door from the podium of the meeting. Okay, any others who wish to speak? First-timers.
Sherry Burdick, Deering Center Road. I was on the building committee for over 5 years, and I had projected a 5-year program out, which all of those items have been done. Then we ended up losing several of the committee members. And so now what we need to do is get people. When you say we just need volunteers, we don't want just volunteers. We want somebody that actually knows something about building, because I see it all the time, not just in that committee, but in a lot of committees. You get people on a committee, and they don't have a clue what they're doing. And when you ask a simple question, well, what about this? They don't have a clue. So I think when you ask for somebody that is going to be on a committee, they better have some basic background, because it doesn't do us any good just to have a lot of people. Keeping a seat warm is what it amounts to.
Well, in some organizations, some committees, it's essential, like the Finance Committee, you need to have a quorum, at least a quorum, to start off with 9, and then you can function with a quorum. So we don't have a backup. So if we lose one more of the 5 members that are available to us.
I believe we only have 2 members that have signed up, myself and one other person.
For the building committee. Right.
Right.
So you can't function with that?
Yeah, we could definitely function, because the other stuff that we were doing, there was only really 2 of us out of the 5 that were doing anything anyway.
Okay. I thank you.
Just want to let you know.
Thank you.
And the other thing is that the board, or some of the board members for sure, know that there are a tremendous amount of problems on some of these buildings. And $15,000 isn't going to make a drop in the bucket. I can tell you that when you get into it. I mean, you've got rakes on the town hall that are all rotted out, corner boards, you got windows that have got to be completely, cleaned down and reputtied and painted. The bell tower's got to be done, and I believe there's something in the one of the articles for that bell tower. But there's a tremendous amount of work that has to be done. And just the mold remediation issue over at the town office, I'm not sure what that's going to cost. But, and I know they keep talking about this company, engineering company, but believe me, there are ways to go out and have somebody come in that has a background with that kind of stuff. And we used one at the Stone Memorial Building. I think if they were called in, they would give them the solution at no cost, and they would fix that. And, it may be $10,000 or more to fix that. I don't know if they have anything in the budget for that or not, but, I wish that we could get this going again, get a budget, put a group of items together that has to be done, get some costing done. It's a lot of work. Somebody's got to do some research here.
Right.
And I think what I've seen so far, without the building committee, no research ever gets done. And we hire people to come in and do a job, and they do a horrendous job. And then we got to redo it again. And that's what, I don't want to pay 2 and 3 times for a job to be done.
Okay, thank you, Sherry.
Moderator?
Yes?
I'd like to speak to this. We have, 3 years ago, the board met over at the town hall to go over a list of repairs with some contractors on what it needed. We got an estimate back from one of those contractors, and for bell tower work, roof trim, corner board replacement, window replacement, and then gazebo repairs. But the bell tower is called out in another warrant article, and that's because last year the input from the voters was we need to have itemized projects on the ballot. So we did that. With that remaining money that's in that Government Building Maintenance Fund, the plan is this year that we put in place was to do the rot repair, the corner boards and the trim, to try and get on the other side of the rot. Unfortunately, it's hard to know how much rot you have at face value. You could pull that off and find out that there's other issues behind that or more that we didn't account for. So initially, that's why that fund went, that line item was at over $40,000. That was pulled out because of the fact that we do have $59,000 in that account. With that said, we still have buildings that we're going to have that are going to need maintenance. One particular item I call out at most of the meetings is the South Weare Fire Station. That was built in 1991. And I've been on the department or involved in the department for over 15 years, and the boiler that's upstairs, the heater, is the original one I remember being up there. So not knowing, holding a crystal ball when these items are going to fail is why we decided to put at least something in that account, $15,000 in this item. But we do have intentions for that money. It's not like it's just put it in there and hope for a rainy day fund. We do, like I said, the plan is to utilize that. And again, because of the rot, it's hard to put a solid number on that project. So that's why we're going to use that fund as we can to make that repair to the town hall. And again, we do have other buildings, as stated, that we need to maintain as well. And there is $16,000 in the Mildred Hall Fund designated for the town hall. She was gracious enough to leave us with a good sum of money between the Clinton Grove Academy and the town hall. The town hall account, again, has $16,000 in it. And I'd move to question.
Question has been moved, seconded. It has been moved and seconded. We're voting on the moving of the question. All those in favor of moving on, please raise your card. Okay. Thank you. Okay, it has, the question has been moved. We're going to now vote on the amendment, which is the town shall raise, to see if the town shall raise and appropriate the sum of $15,000. Zero. Sorry. Shall the town raise and appropriate the sum of $0 to be added to the previously established government, blah, 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 blah. Questions? Good. All those in favor of that article of zero in that account, please raise your cards. Okay, I think all those in favor of not approving that reduction, I believe the noes have it. So that change, that amendment has failed. So now we go back to Article 4, as originally written. Shall the town raise and appropriate the sum of $15,000 to be added to the previously established government building and maintenance capital reserve fund? More discussion. Seeing none, it will go on the ballot as written.
Yes.
That's it. There's a motion to prevent reconsideration of this. And it's been seconded. All those in favor of the motion not to reconsider this article, please raise your card. Thank you very much. Article 5, Police Cruiser. 1, recommended by the Selectmen and the Finance Committee. Shall the... that I was clearing my throat. Come on. Shall the town raise and appropriate the sum of $44,571 for the purpose of 1 fully equipped marked cruiser, police cruiser, and to authorize $44,571 to be withdrawn from the unreserved fund balance for this purpose. This will replace one existing cruiser. Do you want to speak to it? Yes.
This is a replacement for the existing fleet. They're trying to get on a regular rotation of 1-for-1 to cut down on the maintenance item for some of the, I guess for a less delicate term, of junk that they're driving around in. And eventually it'll reduce our maintenance budget. In the past, it was $70,000 for cruiser repair. We're down to just one for $20,000, and that'll reduce even more as we replace the cars on a yearly basis, 1-for-1.
Pardon me. And Lori, good, you'll let me finish the donut.
The Finance Committee recommends this article. 3 cruisers were purchased last year. The capital improvement plan originally called for 2 additional cruisers this year. The committee agrees with the Board of Selectmen's decision to drop to 1 additional cruiser to meet the demand of current operations and make further progress on replacing an aging fleet. The police chief has stated this cruiser would be used in support of daily operations and not used by the chief or any officer for commuting purposes.
Further discussion? Seeing none, it will appear on the ballot as written and as read, hopefully better. It has been moved to restrict reconsideration. It is seconded. All those in favor of the motion to restrict reconsideration, thank you very much. Article 6.
Moderator,
yes.
At least asking for the no votes.
I'm sorry. Good point. All those not in favor of restricting reconsideration, please raise your cards. Not seeing any. We're moving on to Article 6. Shall the town raise an appropriate? Nope. Article 7. Nope, Article 6, sorry. Shall the town raise and appropriate the sum of $41,544, representing the cost of adding 1 additional full-time police officer to the existing police department. This represents the wages and benefits for 6 months. If the article is approved, this would become part of the annual operating budget. Tom?
Move the article as it is written.
Thank you. Do you wish to speak to that?
Yes. Again, this would allow us to have a schedule that has police officers on duty 24 hours a day, which we don't now. That's the plan. It would be tight with only 1 new officer, but the chief feels that there would be a possibility of doing that with 1 additional officer. In order to have this hiring take place, we have to plan on it well in advance. Right now, and it's going to be, I'm sure, discussed here today, that we are down 2 officers now. Hopefully, as of Monday, we'll be down just 1 officer because we do have a candidate coming before the board on Monday. The timing here is the important thing if we ever want to fill this position, because once that it's approved, it's like probably 18 months off before the person is on the job, because of the timing of the police academies for training, the amount of on-the-job training the person has to have. So if it's put off for another year, then really we're putting it off for 2 years or 2.5 years. So the board is in favor of this because we want to see us return to that level of service of having officers 24 hours a day.
Lori.
The Finance Committee does not recommend this warrant article. The committee does not support adding a police officer position. The town has 2 positions open. One is supposed to be coming through Monday. The other one will still be open. It is the census of the committee that these positions should be filled first. When we have a full complement of officers at current approved levels, operational demands can be reassessed and recommendations can be made. The police chief informed the committee that Weare is the second safest town in the state of New Hampshire. Going on that and giving more background on the Finance Committee's discussion. First off, we need a full complement of police, and that has been backed up by both the chief, and we've discussed it at the Board of Selectmen's level as well as the Finance Committee level. Putting a person in for this warrant article is not going to solve that problem. Secondly, we are the second safest city in the state, town in the state. We have the state sheriff's department, the state troopers. If you call, they will come. I know because I have been on the phone with them all week. I have talked to surrounding towns, and I gave them the example. If something happens and I have a shootout at the OK Corral at my house, somebody will show up. And once again, we're doing the let's scare the town residents. The Finance Committee does not recommend this.
Thank you. Others?
Travis Corcoran, Quaker Street. First, I've got a question. I'm not sure who I should direct it to. I'll direct it to the moderator, and it can be redirected. The final sentence is, if this article is approved, this would become part of the annual operating budget. I presume from context that this refers to $41.5 thousand a year. In fact, what would become part of the annual operating budget is 12 months of that, so not $41,000, but $83,000. Is that correct? That is
yes.
Correct. Thank you. Okay, so we've got a clarification that this is actually talking about increasing spending by $83,000 a year. So the estimated tax impact in the first year is 5 cents per thousand, but in all future years it's 10 cents per thousand. Is that also correct?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Additionally, we have a contract already signed with the police department that provides for annual raises. What is the raise that this hypothetical future hire would receive after 1 year on the job?
I'm getting that information for you.
Okay.
I don't have the contract here, but it's
something like 3 or 4%. Is that in the right range?
Yeah, probably.
Okay, so it's not that we're looking at 41,000. It's not that we're looking at 83,000. It's that we're looking at 85 or 86,000. And then there are also benefits and retirement accounts, et cetera, associated with the position, I believe. Is that correct? Okay. And I know that there are various individual safety items, tasers, body cameras. I believe that there are some tactical rifles. There are some shields that would be requested. So we would additionally, for this position, have to fully equip this officer. Do we have a round number for how much equipping an additional officer takes? Is $10,000 in the right range? I heard some whispering that perhaps it's $15,000. I'll assume that's right unless there's a rebuttal.
I'll speak to that. I'll talk to you.
In the neighborhood, I don't have a hard number for you, John. It's in the neighborhood.
Yeah, I know. That's what I was going to say.
It's in the neighborhood, as I understand it, between 5 and 7,500.
Okay. Thank you.
May I, Mr. Moderator, another part of that question. This amount of money that you see here does include any benefits that's related to the position. It's not strictly the salary. It's salary, benefits, FICA, anything else related to it that's a labor cost.
Thank you. Both in the discussion of police spending and earlier when we were talking about EMS spending, there was the absolutely correct framing of it's not just a cost, it's a cost for benefit. And that is, I'm a fiscal conservative, but I absolutely acknowledge that. So when I look at this, I don't say, oh gosh, my taxes are going up. I do, in fact, wonder, okay, there's the benefit. Right now, I've looked several times to find our crime statistics. I know that the town does not have a police blotter, and I've spoken to the chief saying, hey, I'm not reflexively against all spending. I can be convinced if there are some statistics saying, we've got 43 property destruction and 7 thefts, etc. Well, perhaps one more officer would help that. My understanding is that we do not have a police blotter, and that is not a police department priority to get one. So, last week we don't know how many crimes there were, and next week we're not going to know how many crimes there are. We do have some data suggesting that we are the second safest town in the state. Given all of that, it's not like, I hear about all the muggings that are going on, and, well, more police lower the chance that I'm going to have stuff stolen out of my barn. We're already extraordinarily safe. We have established that the additional spending is $83,000 a year plus mandatory increases year after year because of a contract. Therefore, I do not think that this is wise spending. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
I can clarify the expense a little more. This is, unfortunately, our finance administrator couldn't be here today, but she did leave some information behind for us. And so the total yearly cost would be $89,656, and that is all-inclusive, full year of the wages, New Hampshire retirement, the health insurance, payroll taxes, and the equipping of the officer, a ballistic vest, a uniform, radio, dry cleaning, and training. So that that 89 yearly cost would be all inclusive of all of the things that were mentioned.
Thank you. Frank?
Frank Campana, Quaker Street. Well, I wanted to amend the budget, amend that article, but there seems to be a conflict of dollar amounts.
May I make a correction, because maybe we talked about the same thing, because I read this wrong. The $89,656 includes the wages, the New Hampshire retirement, the health insurance, the payroll taxes, but it does not include those other things that I listed, the equipment. That's an additional amount.
Okay, I appreciate that. I spoke to the same. It's not a simple, for the 6 months, it's not simple to just double the 41,000. I don't think that's in dispute because of other expenses in there. I did speak to the same finance administrator, and because I wanted to be relatively sure on the dollar amount, and she gave me actually a little over $100,000, and I think some of it, was timing of having to pay benefits or something. I wish she was here because she could explain it much better than I can. But what I would like to do is I'd like to amend that article. You want this first?
Yes, please.
At the end of the sentence, at the end of the article where it says annual operating budget, I would like to amend that with the to include with the estimated sum increase to a full 12. With the estimated sum increase to $100,000 for a full 12 months.
It has been moved to increase that to $100,000 for a full 12 months. Is there?
Not exactly.
No.
I believe the amendment is to add a note at the end of the warrant article that next year's estimated budget impact would be $100,000?
Not next year's. The estimated sum increase, well, for a full 12 months, next year and forever after.
Right, so you're not changing the number in the article, you're just adding this to the end of it?
That's correct.
Okay.
Thank you for the clarification.
I had expected the town's attorney to get up. There is precedence. I'm glad you didn't dispute that. There is a precedent back in 2016. There was Article 20, which was the same thing. That time it was 3 full-time officers. I offered an amendment with, again, at the end, with the annual sum increase of the dollar amount for full 12 months.
But since that's not in dispute, we can...
I know, but I just need to say that there was precedence there. A couple of things about the full-time, about the officer. I've heard several times tonight, this afternoon, today, that Weare is the second safest town in the state. I think maybe last year or the year before we were like the 5th. But I think that's great. But I have not heard anything to point that, to tell me that we're the second safest because of the Weare Police Department, specifically. I'm not discrediting the police department by any means. I mean, it just could be a matter of luck, you know, that we don't have a lot of bars, I guess. We don't have a lot of, you know, probably house parties that would cause, you know, people to go out and be perpetrators. We probably don't have a lot of people. Again, I don't know what we have for house breaks because I never see any information put out. Maybe I don't know where to get that information. So, you know.
So you're saying that there are other contributing factors?
Well, no, what I'm saying is I haven't heard anything to substantiate to me that we're the second safest because of the Weare Police Department. That's all I'm saying.
Okay.
Okay?
Thank you.
If the Weare Police Department said, yeah, we're the second safest because we have a cop on every corner, well, okay, that would substantiate it to me a little bit better. The other thing is, well, really just to reiterate in an agreement with the Finance Committee, you know, I would like to see a full complement of officers to, you know, before we start hiring other people. And just my last comment on my amendment, more to the point, you know, I sit in on a lot of selectmen's meetings, and I hear the word transparency thrown out by the board members, you know, on a number of occasions. Well, this amendment, to me, would lend to transparency. And what I will keep an eye on when it comes to the vote for this, I will look at the 6 people up at the table in front of me, and I will see if they're true to their word, that they want to see that they're advocating transparency. Because a 12-month cost at $100,000 is transparent. There may be some people here that heard me last couple of school meetings. You know, you don't enter into an obligation, right, without knowing what the total amount is. Gee, you go buy a refrigerator or a large appliance, and they got a big yellow...
Or another police officer.
Well, I mean, I could even bring a house mortgages and car loans.
You don't need to.
I don't need to. But you can go buy a major appliance, and it's got a yellow sticker on it with an estimate of what you're going to pay for a year.
Thank you.
Plain and simple. So, again, I will keep an eye on the board and see if they're, you know, transparent. If they don't vote for the article, for the amendment, then I hope I don't have to go to a selectmen's meeting and listen to them promote how transparent they may be.
Thank you.
Moderator.
So, yes?
I'd like to say something.
Rick?
I'm not going to try and do this Washington Monument Syndrome thing, but I've lived the real world without having the 24-hour coverage. Being on the ambulance, and I know that some of the other members have voiced this to me as well, is that those hours between 3 to 7, we go to a somewhat, we'll call it, questionable EMS call that needs PD there. We've had to stand by, and I've been there, 45 minutes plus waiting for state police to show up to an incident. Because we're not going to, you know, we risk our lives obviously with the fire side of it, but we're not going to go into a hostile environment in the ambulance. And waiting 45 minutes makes you question what's going on down at the call. What are we going to be walking into that possibly could have been prevented by, you know, an officer showing up that was 5 minutes away? The other thing too is, and It could happen. I know we've had one hit this year. It's a possible example. One of our plow trucks gets hit by an out-of-control, vehicle going down the road. They're going to wait 45 minutes to file the police report and take them off the road 45 more minutes? I don't know. It could happen because, it's possible. They're out 24/7 plowing when we get a lot of snow or conditions. Now the road isn't plowed. So I'm in support of this, but I can see both sides of the coin. I would like to see the full 11 staffed to have a real number. But again, unfortunately, and fortunately, with our vetting process, we're getting quality officers, and it takes a lot of time to fill those spots.
Okay, we're talking right now about the amendment to Article 6, which is putting with the estimated sum increase for a full 12 months of $100,000 at the end of the article. Sherry?
I'm not talking to that. I want to make a comment. I want to make a comment on this article, but not to the 101.
Well, right. Right now, we're talking about that addition at the end of the article. Okay? Anybody else who has not spoken? Frank? Quickly?
I will. Not to be critical of Selectman Hippler, but that is an example of muddying the waters, because you heard his comment on the need for the cop, and I would like to ask the moderator to tell me that his comment is germane to the amendment. I was only talking about the dollar amount. I wasn't talking about the need, the whys, and the wherefores.
Yes, I understand.
So,
which led me to make the comment that we need to focus on the amendment of $100,000.
And my apologies to that,
Thank
Frank.
you. Okay. Again, I'm not questioning
that's
your
fine.
opinion.
I take the criticism.
Again, tell Mr. Hippler that I'm not questioning his opinion.
Mr. Hippler, did you hear that? Okay.
Message received.
Good.
But I would like to reflect on that. I'm okay with the amendment. I just want to make sure that the number at the end is accurate. We've heard 3 numbers put out. One that we have is 9 days old. We've heard Frank's and we've heard Sherry's number. I just want to make sure that number at the end, whatever it may be, is accurate.
His amendment speaks for this itself, $100,000. Accuracy, I can't verify. So we're still speaking to the amendment. Sherry, do you wish?
I want to speak to the article.
Okay, we'll get there in just a minute.
I'm speaking to the amendment. If you want a more specific number, if it's okay with Frank to put a more specific number in there than the general 100,000, a number going back to the finance administrator, which is probably what she gave you, be $100,656. Would you Would you object to have that number put in there because it's the
What was the number again?
$100,656.
Yes. I mean, but even my number and your number is really pretty much an estimate.
That's the number from the finance administrator. It's probably one she gave you.
So can I get that number again, please, Tom?
$100,656.
Thank you,
Okay. So the amendment has been amended to $100,656. Correct? Okay. Let us vote on that amendment. All those in favor of amending this Article 6 to read, this represent the wages and benefits for 6 months, period. If this article is approved, this would become part of the annual budget with the estimated sum increase for a full 12 months of $100,656. Are we clear? Thank you. Okay. We're voting on the amendment to change this article in that fashion. Please raise your cards if you're in favor of that amendment. All those opposed? The amendment has passed. And that will appear on the...
Now back to the article. I think Sherry had a comment.
Okay, so now we're back to Article 6 with the amendment. Terry.
I just have a question on this amendment, because we're talking one police officer, and I've heard the chief make the comment more than once that he needs 2 people per shift minimum. So I don't know what this is going to buy us if we only have 1 person on this article. And the chief, I've heard him say it at least twice, maybe 3 times in the last year. So I'd like to know if he could speak to that.
I'll bring it to you.
Thank you, Sherry, for asking that clarification. The current authorized strength of 11 officers, that 11th position, would go towards covering that 24/7. The 12th position, which is Article 6, would enable the 2 officers per shift. So this is the addition needed for 2 officers per shift, 24 hours, 7 days a week.
So we'd be shy, we'd be one less officer on first or second shift then.
Right. No. If I understood your question, you asked we'd be short on another shift.
We'd be short on that, on third shift, because you're only asking for 1 officer. And you've
Okay,
made the
now I
comment
get it.
several times
Yep.
when I've been present that you will not have 1 officer
That's
on
correct.
shift alone.
That's correct.
So
That's-
what does this buy us, getting 1 officer that we're not going to be able to use on third shift?
Yes, ma'am, you would, because this adds the second officer needed for that shift. 24 hours a day. This 12th position would provide enough police officers for 24 hours a day, 7 days a week with 2 people on shift.
All right, so then we don't need those other 2 officers on first shift that you've been looking to fill. We have 2 positions opened on first or second shift. We don't need them then. If you're going to take 1 off and deal with just third shift, you're telling me you have enough police officers if this passes?
I don't have nearly enough police officers. If you look at statistical data, the size of the town, the population of the town, we are significantly understaffed. Going to 2 officers per shift is the absolute dead minimum necessary to cover patrol shifts, period. That is almost no preventive patrols. That is no specialized investigators. That is purely a response minimum.
Right. Thank you.
Neil Kirk, Mount Dearborn Road. I'd like the record to reflect that there is a dispute as to how many officers are authorized. Some folks think that that the number of authorized officers includes the chief, and others do not. So that is, I believe, still a matter of dispute. Thank you, Mr. Moderator.
Thank you. So noted.
Travis Corcoran, Quaker Street. I have a question for the chief. He just said that according to statistics, the town is significantly understaffed with police officers. My question is, if we were staffed up to the levels that statistics suggest, where in the New Hampshire crime rankings do you think Weare would rate? Instead of being number 2, would it rise significantly better than that? Thank you.
Great question. Yes.
Jim Leary, 189 Gould Road. Just wanted to get a clarification on the amendment. It's going to now read that it's $100,000 for 12 months, but it's still going to state that the tax impact is 5 cents. That's going to actually not be correct, because the tax impact for the actual 12 months will be 10 cents or thereabouts.
But the article reads for the benefits for 6 months.
For 6 months, but then it's saying for the 12 months, what's going to happen is people are going to read the article through, and they're going to read that and I don't have it right in front of me, so I can't quote
Right.
it, but the annual operating budget, and then it says, for the 12 months will be $100,000, but it's still stating that the tax impact is 5 cents, which would make people think that the tax impact for that $100,000 will only be the 5 cents as well.
People may think that the purpose of putting the estimated tax impact on the ballot and on the warrant is to show the tax impact for this year. And so the tax impact for this year will be 5 cents.
Is there a way that we could amend the amendment to put a estimated tax impact for the following year at the end of that?
Certainly, if you wanted to offer such an amendment, the body could consider it.
Lori?
I'm speaking as me, Lori Davis, not Lori Davis Finance Committee.
Okay, but Marge was ahead of you as an individual. Certainly.
The tax impact doesn't actually show on the ballot. It only shows on the mailer, and this can be explained in the mailer.
Marge.
Mr. Moderator, Marjorie Burke, 47 Merrill Road. Earlier in the discussion around the budget, you heard eloquently from Jack Dearborn about how difficult it is to hire highly qualified police officers for this town. I serve with Jack on the oral boards sometimes, and I know how thorough the hiring process is. And you heard from Selectman Hippler about the need for officers when an ambulance call happens. What happens if there's a call in the middle of the night when we don't have an officer on duty and the ambulance goes and it's a domestic violence situation where somebody's being beaten up and little children are there witnessing all of this? We talk a lot about the dollar amount of this article. I'm in favor of hiring an additional officer so we have 24/7 coverage. And I want to ask you, is a life worth more or less than the amount of money that we are talking about? I believe you cannot put a price on a life. So I support this article. Thank you.
Yes.
Bill Anderson, 137 East Road. My comment is nothing to do with the benefits or costs of 24-hour coverage. In fact, I would like to see 24-hour coverage, but it's the timing. And my comment is addressed to the position and the vacancies that we currently have. My beef is that we haven't been successful in filling the 2 vacancies we had. We may be filling 1, but we'll still have another vacancy. If we establish this position now, with the track record we've been on, it's going to establish another position and a cost of now over $100,000 on an annual basis that will be filtered back into the default budget and the proposed budget for next year that is going to add to that. And you're going to have that cost filtered in when those budgets are established with no benefit because the position will be unfilled. That is why I'd like to see the positions filled that we currently have before we take this step.
Thank you.
Lori Davis, there's several things to address. The first is a question Neil Kirk brought up of complement of officers. This was voted in several years ago, and the town asked for 12 officers. That included the police chief. We currently have a part-time police chief, not a full-time police chief. When this was done, we had a full-time police chief, so we're at half a police chief now. We do not have a full complement because we don't have a number 11 in the pipeline for officers, and the police chief is part-time, so we're operating at short strength. To Mr. Anderson's point, yes, we are going to be overloading the line because we're going to be adding a person, and if it's not filled, it's just going to keep filling there. But the other thing people are not keeping track of is we will now, this year, have $106,000 for a police person in the regular line of 12 that is not hired, that's going to be carried over, which means the police department, if this one isn't filled too, will have a comfortable $212,000 to spend as they see fit in their operating budget, and it will be spent. They do it every year, and it's going to be carried over to next year.
Tom?
I would just move the question on the amendment.
Okay, the question has been moved. I'm sorry?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay, so we've voted on the amendment, we're voting on the article.
Well, I'm off in left field
No, it just
somewhere.
needs
Then.
stated.
Sorry about that.
Okay, we've already voted on the amendment.
Okay, then I will comment, and I'd like to just reiterate what Marge Burke said, because it's really not the number of calls, it's the severity of them, and you need the officer there when it happens. I understand everything about the budgeting factors here, and I can't really disagree with that, but the timeline on hiring an officer is so extended because we're having problems filling these positions that if we put this off and put the same article on next year at this time, then we've moved it down the road, as I said earlier, probably 18 months before we could get to that level. So that's my position on this. And the other thing is, it isn't the number of calls that you have in the wee hours of the morning. It's whether or not the officer is needed and how far away they are. And I think that's just reiterating also what Selectman Hippler said earlier. So I'm certainly in favor of this, otherwise we wouldn't have it on the ballot, but that's my reasoning for that.
Thank you. Yes, Helen?
Mr. Moderator, two things. One, is there any way to put on this warrant article that if the position isn't filled, that this money cannot be expended for anything else? Don't know if that can legally put something in there so it's...
It can't at this point. To make this so that this money could not be spent on anything else, it would need to be designated a special warrant article, and that needs to be done when it's warned. It can't be amended to make it a special warrant article.
Okay, thank you. And the second thing is if we have 12 officers, is that then a guarantee that we have 24-hour coverage? And I bring that up because I felt that in a statement that was made, we might have 24-hour coverage, and I'd like to have made clear that we would or we might, and if maybe the police chief can make that clear.
I'm going to give you my 2 cents on that. My 2 cents is that barring extenuating circumstances, such as illness or whatever, that would provide us with 24-hour, two-person coverage.
I wonder if the chief or the chair would also confirm that.
Thank you for your question, Helene. This 12th position, it's a conditional guarantee. And the reason I say it like that is this. As Tom pointed out, if, for the sake of discussion and argument, let's say the money was approved this moment. We wouldn't hire the person until the hiring process was complete, and then they would have to go through a training period. So during that period, while they're getting their basic police officer certification, they wouldn't be available for that 24 hours. But once they are certified, once we have them into the role, yes, you would have 24-hour coverage.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I move the debate.
The question's been moved. It's been seconded. All those in favor of ending debate, please raise your card. Thank you. All those opposed? Seeing none, it will be printed as read with the amendment. It has been asked for this motion, this article, to be restricted from reconsideration. All those in favor? All those opposed? Okay, it has been restricted. Article. Okay, I need to get a sense of the body about at what point we want to stop for a lunch break, or if the committee wants to. All those in favor of stopping for a lunch break at some point, please indicate so. All those opposed and going right through? Okay.